horse girls and horse girl curious individuals. My name is Lulu and you're watching Call Me Lulu. This is a channel where I talk about my reading and writing journey and occasionally get sidetracked by talking about horses. And I thought, since I am a horse girl and trend forecasters are predicting Horsegirl Fall, I could talk to you about some of my favorite horse girl books or horse girl literature, if you will. So, why are trend forecasters saying that it's about to be Horsegirl Fall? First, there's been a general popularity of Western wear and like Western culture in the past couple years, which I, as a Texan who literally grew up in the hayloft of a barn, like my family literally lived there, I have benefited greatly from that. Thank you, Velvet Outlaw. And now certain collections are introducing general sort of like English equestrian wear, think breeches, think fry boots, into runway collections. And we can see this in Kendall Jenner and Gigi Hadid's recent Vogue shoot, which I think came out to mixed reviews, but you can see them have a sort of like Western aesthetic mixed with that very posh equestrian aesthetic. Outdoor Voices is coming out with an equestrian collection recently, or has come out with it. I've gotten ads upon ads for it and it seems a little bit pricey. And Old Navy as well has come out with an equestrian collection. Runways have featured things like tall boots and also things like bolo ties. Personally, I really like this mix of aesthetics. I am a Western rider for the most part, but I do ride at an English barn. And I, like a lot of horseback riders, tend to mix both aesthetics. So this is really catering to me. As you can see, I am in English attire right now, or if you can't, this is like English riding attire. I have on breeches and I have on paddock boots. I like my paddock boots because the toe is very narrow, versus my cowgirl boots, the toe is wider. So these help me find the stirrup when I'm riding, versus my cowgirl boots. I wear those if I'm just doing general horse chores around like a barn or something. But I am the only Western rider in my barn. And my instructor tends to wear more English attire as well. Anyway, and I think part of that is like, I don't want to wear jeans in the summer. Breeches are a lot more comfortable, so I wear those. But anyway, I also want to define what I mean as horse girl, because there's been a lot of debate within and outside of the horse girl community about like who qualifies as a horse girl and who gets to be a horse girl. So I want to be clear that I mean horse girl inclusive. Whether you've never seen a horse in real life, whatever color you are, socioeconomic status you come from, whatever your gender is, if you identify with horses and care about their welfare and want to be a horse girl, congratulations, you're in. The only thing I care about is that you care about the welfare of the animal under or around you, right? I don't care how many like Olympic medals you have, if you have a ribbon, if you have a belt buckle, whatever. If you don't care about the horse and you don't express concern for its welfare, you don't get to be a horse girl. Otherwise, open season, welcome in. Within the horse girl label, I think we have three distinct archetypes, especially like in North America or the US where I am. And I want to introduce those to you before we get into the books. So the first archetype is the equestrian. So think of like Saddle Club. This girl aims to appear put together. She's generally an English rider. You can find her riding a warm blood, a thoroughbred, a Welsh pony, or some kind of sports horse like a Frisian. Popular events for this girl are dressage, show jumping, and hunter jumper. And I think this sort of mode can be a great place to explore class. We think of English riders as being very wealthy for a reason. It takes a huge amount of money to be an accomplished show jumper. I think Bruce Springsteen's daughter is a very accomplished show jumper. And then Steve Jobs' daughter, Eve Jobs, was at one time, I think, one of the highest rated jumpers in the world. So it can take a lot of money to run in that circle. There are also like specialized equestrian boarding schools that you can send your kid to for more money than my entire college journey cost per year or semester. So it can be a place full of wealth, and that doesn't mean, but that doesn't mean that every equestrian is wealthy. I know I have friends who have done like jumping or English riding, and people tend to think that they're very wealthy when in reality they're working students, and they tend to do unpaid labor around a barn so that they can participate in the same programs that the other kids participate in. So I think literature that centers around like an English riding world tends to be more focused on class, and we'll see that when I get into the things. The second archetype is the cowgirl. This girl is a Western style rider. She wants to appear resilient, breezy, and competent, but that doesn't necessarily mean she'll go easy on you. You will catch her on a Mustang, an Appaloosa, or a trusty quarter horse, and you can find cowgirls doing sports like barrel racing, reining, which I think is actually what my instructor does, or cowboy mounted shooting, which is what I want to learn to do. If anybody knows a place for cowboy mounted shooting in Austin, please comment. And then lastly, what I've called the mystic. And this girl might not have her own horse, but that will not stop her from knowing everything about them. She connects with the majesty and empathy that she sees in horses and the freedom of the horse. You can find her customizing her own Breyer horses or doing hobby horsing, which is a track and field sport using stick horses. Some emblems of the mystic include fantasy horses like Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, the Pegasus, or the Unicorn. I would venture to say that each of these horse girls resides inside of us to some measure. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way, and then I'm gonna list some books that could help you connect with your inner horse girl. The first horse girl book on my list is Girls and Their Horses by Eliza Jane Brazier. This is a thriller set in the English show jumping world of Southern California, which I think is one of kind of the lushest and richest areas in the world for show jumping. A newly rich family moves to this area, and the mom has always had a dream of being a show jumper and is trying to push that dream on her children, and things go terribly. It is kind of a book that explores the extent to which a parent should shape their child through different sets of girls and their moms. The writer does have extensive experience in the show jumping world of Southern California, and that shows. From what I read, like as a horse person, some of the things that you're supposed to find sort of cringy or annoying in this book really got to me, because they are things that would just like really get on your nerves. Like I know in like the first scene or so, this mom and her daughter walk into a barn that's not theirs and start feeding the horses, and you're like, oh my God, don't do that. Stuff like that. And this book really explores this world from a class lens within the context of like a very fast-paced thriller. I think I read most of this book in the bookstore. But yeah, and it's currently being adapted into a movie with Nicole Kidman, which I think is going to be really fun. But if you want a book that is really, really going to set you in the horse girl world, this is it. One thing I will say though is that the prose is very simple and straightforward. I tend to like more like lyrical stuff. This writer is coming from the YA writing world, and I listened to an interview with her, and she did say that she didn't necessarily change anything up with her prose moving from YA to adult, and I think that does show here, but I would still really recommend this book. Oh, okay. The official note I wrote was, this book uses an exploration of class in this world to build power imbalances in character relationships and fuel tension, which I think is a good explanation, so I should have just said that word for word, but would still really recommend this book. So second, I just want to recommend a mountain of children's literature. I don't really want to get into a lot of children's literature in this video because I think my channel is kind of aimed at adult readers, even if I do talk about children's books a lot. But some Horsegirl classics are My Friend Flicka, Black Beauty, The Black Stallion. Some of my favorites when I was little were the Realms series, which I remember being really horse focused, but I haven't gone back and read it. So I can't say for sure. Misty of Chincoteague, which is about a Chincoteague pony. And I think I maybe had my mom's copy from quite a while ago, so that was really nice to have. And then Riding Freedom. If you are a queer horse girl or are interested in being a queer horse girl, Riding Freedom is probably a good place to start. So that is just an entree into the children's literature of the horse girl. Next, I have an essay collection, Horse Girls, Recovering, Aspiring, and Devoted Riders Redefine the Iconic Bond. And the collection is compiled and edited by Halima Marcus. Halima or Halima Marcus. This collection includes a diverse group of writers, including Tommy Orange, Sheila Heti, and Carmen Maria Machado. I, for the most part, really enjoyed the essays in this collection, and even the ones I didn't find enjoyable, I think were necessary and brought a lot of stuff to light as far as like race, class, the sexualization of teenage girls in this sport. Yeah, I think it's really worth a read. I do want to shout out Brodie Blay Billy. I don't quite know how to say her name, but she is a French-Canadian Seminole writer who grew up on the Seminole Reservation in Florida. And in this essay, she talks about the horse culture she grew up with and the history of that. Her essay is called Unconquered, and I really enjoyed it. I appreciated the depth of this essay. So I wanted to shout that out as well. Next, I want to recommend The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. This one is actually still on my TBR, so I haven't read it yet, but I wanted to make sure I included fantasy, and I'll probably read this within the next month or so. I also really liked the Wolves of Mercy Falls series by Maggie Stiefvater when I was younger, so I'm pretty confident that I'll like this. But in this book, a young woman participates in something called the Scorpio Races, which is a race across an island on these sort of like carnivorous horses that come out of the ocean and people catch them. So I am really looking forward to that. I think there is a whole video on this that Subtextual Tension did, so I'm really excited to watch that after I read. Oh, I'm also a Scorpio, and I have a soft spot for fantasy, so that's another one of the reasons why I want to read it. Next, I have a Western romance, Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. This is about Emmy, a down-on-her-luck barrel racer who falls in love with Luke, her oldest brother's childhood best friend. And they rebuild their relationship while she literally builds the confidence to get back on a horse. I really liked the plot concept of just like a barrel racer who can't get back on a horse. Like she has an accident and gets scared away. I think this is like a real thing that happens to a lot of horseback riders where they get injured or something and they take a long break from riding a horse or being around horses. I know so I grew up with horses. We had 3 horses when I was growing up, and I ended up parted from them in a pretty traumatic way. Like, I didn't get injured, the horses didn't get injured, but I just got separated from them, and I had to go live with another member of my family. And that left a big hole in my heart and made me afraid to get back on a horse for a really long time. So I like stories where someone's kind of building the confidence to get back on a horse. And there are a lot of horse scenes in this. You are solidly put in the Western riding world, but it is a very romanticized version of this world. Like, they're not sitting there talking about the ethics of ranching, which I kind of wish they were, but that's obviously not necessary for a romance novel. There is a lot of spice in this story, so just be warned. I know my husband and I listened to it as an audiobook on a car trip. We were actually going to my friend's graduation and also to pick up our puppy. We listened to this then. Percy! Percy! Okay, he's chewing on something. But there was a lot of giggling in the car when we were listening to it. But if you like a glossy Western vibe or you're a sucker for a cowboy, this is a book for you. Next, swinging completely to the other end of the spectrum, I have the nonfiction book, The Death of a Racehorse by Katie Bo Lillis. This is another one that I haven't read yet, but that's on my TBR. It's actually on my wish list to get for my birthday. In this book, a CNN reporter looks at 2 different cases of abuse of racehorses and really dives into the dark side of the racing industry through that. You will probably, even though this is a booktube channel, hear me talk about animal welfare and horse welfare particularly a lot on this channel, like a weird amount, and I think it occupies a weird amount of my brain. I think a lot of us are familiar with like overcrowding at like animal shelters and like the backyard breeding of animals and how that affects like our normal everyday domestic pets, but it's definitely magnified in the horse world to a pretty big and deleterious effect. So whatever you feel about like dogs in shelters or irresponsible dog breeding, know that it's like worse with horses, and if you're gonna set foot in the horse world, would be good to like proceed with caution and do as much research as you can. Also, I will say with like dog training, how there are sort of more positive and more forceful methods of doing that. It's the same with horses, and to a larger extent, like this is like a tangent, but don't ever let anyone tell you that horses feel less pain than humans do. Horses actually have thinner skin and more nerve endings. So if you ever see someone like using force around a horse and they tell you like it's just a horse, they can cope with it, that's actually not true. Anyway, I am very interested in the animal welfare aspect of the horse world, and I will be reading this. If you are also interested in the animal welfare aspect of the horse world, let me know, because I have so many recommendations for you, but this is this recommendation for this video. And then last on this list, we have The Unmothers by Leslie J. Anderson. I originally heard about this book on the podcast, The Shit No One Tells You About Writing. I think one of the hosts, Cece, is recommending it as a comp title to the queries on that show a lot. And I just wanted to get into it. It is an upmarket fiction novel where a journalist goes to Kentucky horse country to investigate a story where a mare has given birth to a human child. And she finds an even weirder mystery and story behind that. I loved the prose in this story, and it uses fairy kidnappings as a motif. And if you know me, you know I love a good fairy kidnapping. I've said it once and I'll say it again. So that was just up my alley, and this book actually inspired this video. I also, for some reason, almost forgot to include it, but I would totally recommend The Unmothers. Anyway, that's all my recommendations. How do you guys feel about them? Do you have any favorite Horsegirl books that I missed? I would love to see your recommendations below. Anyway, y'all take care. Happy Horsegirl Fall. I'll see you soon. Bye.